Okay, now we have a different function called f, and in this case f of x is equal to negative 5x plus 6. And what I want us to do is I want us to evaluate f of negative 11 and f of 200. Now, you do these guys separately. So to find f of negative 11, you use this like a formula, and instead of writing x, I want you to write parentheses. Every time you have to plug in, you need to write parentheses. So f of negative 11, and remember at this point, as soon as you see that negative 11 there, x is gone. X is being replaced with parentheses, and inside the parentheses, you plug in that input value, negative 11, just like that. And from this point on, it's just a matter of can you do the arithmetic. There's really nothing crazy here. You aren't solving anything. You plug in a number, and you just crunch the formula. You find the number. So negative 5 times negative 11 is positive 55 plus 6, and then we do 55 plus 6 and we get 61, and that's it. So when you come across something like this in your homework and it says find f of negative 11, you replace the x with negative 11, you do the math, and you get 61. So as we mentioned before, this is your input, and it's going to give you this particular output. If you needed to write this as an ordered pair, the ordered pair would be input negative 11, comma the output 61. And now let's find f of 200. All right, so again, we have negative 5. Instead of x, I'm going to write parentheses plus 6, and just like we did previously, inside the parentheses we put that input value 200. And we're just going to work this out. All right, so this gives me negative 1,000 plus 6. Combining negative 1,000 and a positive 6 gives me negative 994. Make sure you know how to work with your signs. Make sure you know how to add and subtract correctly, and you're going to be fine. See? No big problem here. All right, let's look at this next example. So in this next example, we have g of x. See, I told you we could use different letters. G of x equals x squared minus 4x plus 9. And we want to find what g of negative 9 is. Or g of negative 7, excuse me. And then g of 2/3. All right, so first things first. Let's find g of negative 7. All right, so this is my input value. So my x's are going to be rewritten using parentheses. So it's going to be parentheses squared minus 4 times parentheses plus 9. Please, please, please use parentheses so we don't run into issues. So inside here I'm going to plug in negative 7 because that's my input value, and plug in negative 7 here. All right, the rest of this is just making sure that you follow the order of operations. Order of operations says that you would do powers first. When you square negative 7, you get positive 49. So I've done my powers. I don't really have any other powers here. Then it goes to multiplication and division. All right, so this is just 49. Negative 4 times negative 7 is positive 28. And then plus 9. All right, so we just have to combine everything here. 49 and 28 gives me 77. 77 plus 9 is 86. All right, now there is something that I want to point out here about that negative 7 squared. I know a lot of times we just trust our calculators blindly. Let me show you the importance of having parentheses. So we should all know that when I square a negative, or if I square a positive, my result should be positive. Now watch this. Parentheses, negative 7 squared gives me 49. If I don't use parentheses and I just type negative 7 squared, it gives me negative 49. So you can't always, I'm not going to say you can't trust the calculator, because the calculator will only do what you tell it to do. So you need to know that when you square a negative, you're going to get a positive. And you can't just say, I'm just going to type this whole thing in my calculator. I'm going to go negative 7 squared minus 4 times negative 7 plus 9. We're not going to get negative 12. You're going to get something completely different. Okay, this is why I need you to use parentheses and just use a little bit of common sense, common number sense in terms of what your signs are supposed to be. So, I guess before we go away, the issue that we have right here is that the calculator squares the 7 and that the negative is going to be the second thing that it does. So the square here is not really applied to both the negative and the 7, which is why you got to be careful with expressions like this. If I write negative x squared, the square is applied to the x only, not the negative. So you'd have to square whatever you plug into x, and once you're done squaring that, then you would throw a negative on top of it. So just be careful when you're doing these problems, when you're using your calculator. All right, now we need to do g of 2/3. Now I know some of you just want to stop the video because I'm dealing with a fraction. Don't do that. Keep going. So we're going to use parentheses for the x's, so that's parentheses squared minus 4 times parentheses plus 9. And this is my input value, so that's what I'm going to plug in to each of these parentheses, just like that. And now we're just going to do the work. All right, so I've got to square the fraction, so that just means square the numerator and square the denominator like this. And just getting ready for my next step, I'm going to say that's 4 over 1 times 2/3 plus, I'm going to go ahead and say that's 9 over 1. I've got a feeling we're going to need to get a common denominator, so let's see. All right, so we get 4 over 9 minus, let's see, that's going to multiply straight across to give me 8 over 3, and then plus 9 over 1. So in order to add these guys, we need to get a common denominator. That common denominator is 9. So this is missing a factor of 3 over 3, right? So what you see here in red, 3 over 3 is 1. If I multiply times 1, that doesn't change the fraction, just gives it something, it makes it look a little different, but it's still equivalent to having 8 over 3. And over here, we are missing all of the denominators, so we're missing 9. Put that missing factor in both the top and the bottom. All right, so we get 4 over 9 minus 24 over 9 plus 81 over 9. And when we combine these guys, let's see, combining these guys gives me negative 20. Negative 20 plus 81 is positive 61 over 9. And there we go. That's really all we have to do when it comes to plugging numbers into functions and evaluating them. But sometimes it's not just numbers, so we'll check on that in the next video.